Hey, if you got this part of the video, you've got the live unedited edition. Home Gadget Geeks, Thursday night. It's the 22nd of June, 2023. And if you got this any other time than 8 p.m. in the Central Time Zone, you've got the recorded version. That's okay. You're on the recorded channel. You can stay here. We're going to talk a little bit of beer here just in a minute, and then we'll get into the show. You can, or you can kind of click ahead if you want to. If you want to do it that way as well, you can. I got to turn off the video playing behind. And Nathaniel Lindley is with me tonight. Nathaniel, welcome.
Thank you. Good. Happy to be here.
Yeah, good to have you. It's been a while. I was thinking it's been a year and some change, right? Maybe two.
Probably about that. Yeah. And I've been listening. You know, I sent you an email a couple weeks ago saying I'm a faithful listener watching the YouTube after the fact. I just am not able to join live on Thursday nights like I used to. So keep it up. And then you're like, oh, well, let's connect again.
Yeah, let's get you on. I think the last time we had you as a follow-up, we had you on right early on with COVID, talking about how that was affecting schools. We kind of talked about that. Then I think a year and some change later, I had you back just as kind of a follow-up. We'll spend a little time talking about that tonight. But good to have you back. What you got a beer? What are you drinking tonight? What's
that? Tonight I have a Hell's in an Ursa Minor glass, but the beer is called Hildy's Hell's from Giesenbrau Brew Company in New Prague, Minnesota.
Nice.
And so it's quite light and refreshing and tasty on a hot summer day. We had 90s today, so it's nice to be inside in the air conditioning.
Are you guys dry up there?
Yeah, very dry. Not much rain at all.
No, it's. I watch a dairy farmer YouTuber. Don't ask me why. He's up in your area, and they planted, and then it just hasn't rained. And he's like, man, we could really use some rain. We're super dry here tonight as well. Just a couple things. John's checking in. John/Tony are just checking in. I'm not sure. I think they're the same person because they're never in the same spot at the same time. So John is, whoever he is playing the role of John Biggs tonight, and that means we won't get Tony here. But John, thanks for coming out to be a part of it. I've got a local cross train, which makes a really popular, and I think it's catching on, beer called Fairy Nectar. That's gotten real popular, very popular here in the Omaha area. But they make one every year called Self-Propelled Mower, and it's a lemon and pineapple. Comes in pints, not the cheapest thing in the world, but it's super tasty. And Cross Train, KROS on that Cross Train, two guys' last name. And it's just a delightful. When I poured it though, it was like 90% foam. So I don't know. I've had to get a foam tunnel out of the glass.
Let it sit a while.
Oh yeah, it'll go down if I spin it around in the glass, and I needed a whole pint. So this is going to be a good, or 16. Is it a pint? Is 16 ounces a pint?
I believe so.
Okay, good. I just want to make sure I've got my measurements correct.
It's somewhat harder finding 12-ounce cans of beer now.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're not going for the mass produced, but a lot of the local breweries here only do pints, 4-packs.
In cans.
Yeah. You don't see as much bottles either.
Right. It seems to go pints, 4-packs.
Mm-hmm.
Like that just seems to be the trend for the local folks, right? And then
$14 to $19 for a 4-pack.
Yeah. Well, and it's a pricing game a little bit too, right? On some of that, and I think it's more efficient to have it as a pint. You drink more, of course. Of course, the big ones, the Budweiser, Miller, Blue Moons, they're still doing 15, like a case of 15.
Yeah,
for something pretty reasonable. We just had two breweries in Omaha merge, or one bought the other. So Brickway bought Lucky Bucket here in town, and the guy who started Lucky Bucket then moved to Brickway, and then bought his brewery back from the folks he'd sold it to after that. Anyways, their Lucky Bucket's still doing brown bottles, 12-ounce brown bottles. That kind of was their thing. And as soon as they were bought, the owner said, we're moving to cans. So they'll be shifting to cans as well, which during the pandemic, maybe a little bit, remember there was kind of an aluminum shortage, or it was getting difficult to find aluminum, apparently.
I don't know. I think a lot of the pandemic was some sort of made up stories about things. We'll see.
Yeah, I guess in some cases we'll never know, but
yeah,
yeah,
it's hard to remember that we used to like put our groceries on the porch and wipe everything down and
yeah,
all the routines that we just didn't know any better or different, and we, got through it.
Yeah, now we're out licking each other all the time.
Yeah, well,
nobody's washing their hands. It's funny how quickly how things changed. Well, Nathaniel, good to have you out. We'll talk a little bit about that because the last time we had you on, we'll focus it on the education side of things. So
sure,
hang tight. Let me kick this thing off. Hopefully, if you're joining us, you've got a cold one. It can be anything you want, and so enjoy the show. Let me kick this thing off. Here we go. This is the Average Guy Network, and you have found Home Gadget Geek, show number 575 with guest Nathaniel Lindley, recorded on June 22nd, 2023. Here on Home Gadget Geeks, we cover all the favorite tech gadgets that find their way into your home, news, reviews, product updates, and conversation, and a lot of conversation, all for the average tech guy. I'm your host, Jim Carlson, broadcasting live from the AverageGuy.tv studios here. And summer's here, and Nathaniel, it's there for you as well. We're in the throes of summer, right?
Yeah, the heat.
Yeah, and it is early. Like we got 2 or 3 months of this still left, right?
Yeah, it's 90s here and dry in Minnesota, and we had like maybe a quarter inch of rain in the last several weeks, and so everything's drying up. And this is June still, so usually we don't get the heat till July and August, but it's going to be a rough one.
Yeah, we usually have thunderstorms all through June, right? It's just rain every 3 or 4 days. You get rain. We've had nothing, so I think it's going to be a long summer. At least we've got air conditioning and power still. And to our friends in Canada, where it seems like the whole country's burning down, we're very, very sorry. You're sending all your smoke our way. Could you keep it to yourself up there?
Yeah.
Are you getting much smoke from up there?
Yeah, we get alerts that the air quality index is high or unusual. And then was it last week or before when St. Paul had some of the worst air quality in the nation because of the fires? It was like 190 or something on that index. It was bad. You'd walk outside and it was hazy, and it's rough. So I'm sorry for all the Canadians that are going through that. But we did have a bunch of wildfires last year or 2 years ago in the West, and we had our turn.
Yeah. Well, and if it dries out like we think it might, we could see some brush fire possibilities here in the Midwest. We don't, typically have forests, but the brush can certainly get dry. So anyways, for all of you affected by that, if you're listening to it, sorry for that. Stay safe. Stay away from those fires if you can. And of course, we'll post this show with some world-class show notes, a few out at the AverageGuy.tv. Big thanks to Bob and Ryan from thinkcomputers.org who joined me 3 weeks ago. I took 2 weeks off. It just, my birthday was in there and some other things. I just took some time off, but Bob and Ryan, appreciate them. And they've always got some great things to say. And of course, big thanks to our Patreon subscribers as well. If you're finding value in the podcast and you want to give back, join us over on Patreon, theaverageguy.tv/Patreon. You heard from him already, but Nathaniel Lindley's here with me tonight. Nathaniel, always great to catch up with you. Welcome back to Home Gadget Geeks.
Thanks.
Let's get an update from you. I think the last time we saw you, we were on the tail end of coming out of the pandemic, whenever that was. We were talking about the effect of it. You work for a school district and kind of the effects on that. Catch us up a little bit. What have you been up to? What's your job been up to? Just give us a little update on you.
Yeah, well, we're all back in school, and we've had our first air quotes normal year, with students in classes every day and adjusting to that. Both my kids going to school and the kids in the school district that I work at, which is different. And I know a lot of the teachers have been trying to catch students up from what they missed or didn't get in the same delivery. It's hard to do ceramics remotely. So there's been some of that, but otherwise it's been really busy. And you kind of think back like, wait a minute, we did what? How quickly did we get all this stuff out? And so it's been an adjustment this year and a real change of focus for my department and our kind of work.
So I felt like schools got a little more agile during that time. If pre 2018, if we would have said, hey, you're going to have students at home full time. Most teachers would have been like, you're crazy.
Yeah.
2019 was a wake up call. 2020, it seems like a lot of like everybody adapted. We kind of figured some things out. It wasn't as good. Some were better than others, right? I mean, it was still a struggle, but do you feel like now are you still taking advantage of some of that adaptability from remote, being able to do things remotely, or did it snap all the way back to the way it was before, do you think?
I think a lot of it snapped back. I think there are definitely teachers that learned new ways to do some teaching and variety of instruction and using tools differently now. But I think a lot of it, it's like, well, we're back in the classroom, so I don't need to do the things that I did when I was remote as much. I think one thing that's changed is the staff work differently. So we have a lot more virtual meetings among staff. And if it's more rare for a meeting to be called at a certain building and everybody has to physically be there. I mean, it happens, but it's much more common to be hybrid. Okay, I'm going to join remotely, or this one's on Teams. And probably like a lot of us now in my role, I have to have Teams and WebEx and Zoom and Google Meet, because depending on which vendor you're talking with or things, they have their own flavor. So for staff, I think that's changed a lot, but for the student instruction, I think it's pretty similar. We're just still using the same tools with students. We are a Google workspace for EDU district. We still run Microsoft 365. But one of the big changes this year, which was a big challenge, is Minnesota passed the student data privacy laws that other states have been rolling out, which is forcing us to really look at the vendors we partner with and look at their data privacy policies and evaluate whether they're being good stewards of our data. And so that restricted a lot of the software tools. So if you think about it, the early pandemic, every software company is like, we'll give it to you for free. It's a pandemic. You can use our tool for free, for a year or whatever. And that was great. And then we got ESSER funds from the federal government to help pay for some of those additional tools and subscriptions. And then those funds dried up. Now the vendors want the money. So we're back to being very particular about which tools we're going to subscribe to and use. Mm-hmm. And so that's been disappointing for teachers who've latched onto one and say, oh, I've learned how to use this tool. It's really great. I find it effective and valuable. And then we say, oh, sorry, you're one of 12 people. We have to get rid of it.
Yeah.
And that's a hard conversation with teachers who, worked hard to learn it and use it. And then we can't really afford it.
Did you move to kind of approved software lists where like you can use it if it's on the list, if it's not, it's going to get removed type deal?
Yeah, all across the board. So we've also done things where extensions and sign-ins, your sign-in with Google has to be on the approved list. And so a lot of it's dealing with, hey, I used to use this calendar integration tool with Google, and now it won't let me log in. And then we have to look at it and see if it's being kept up to date. Is it secure? Is the data privacy good? Is it with staff and students or just students? So we kind of have an approval process where a couple of people look at it both from the educational value, is it a duplication of something we already have? Because we don't need 6 tools that do the same thing. Yeah. And so then it's this whole year has been, kind of evaluation of that kind of stuff and really narrowing down the scope, which I think is that short-term pain because, I really like this one tool and now you won't let me use it. But in the long term, I think people will be better off because then it's like, let's use these tools, these core tools together and learn how to use them better.
Yeah. Do you think the summer will help with that, giving them some time to kind of adapt, come back in the fall, reset? Okay, I figured out what's on the approved list. I figured out how to do my thing and now I can move forward.
Yeah. And it helps us too, because then we can take the different tools and say, okay, here's our catalog. If you're looking for a math innovation or support tool, here's the 3 that we already have approved or pay for. Let's use those. Mm-hmm. So it's really, trying to consolidate a bit and focus on fewer tools that do what we need to do instead of during COVID, it was just like, try anything. Yeah. Doesn't matter.
Yeah. Yeah, no rules at this point. Whatever gets it,
Yeah.
whatever gets
Yeah.
it done,
Yep.
safely. Do you think the students, their view of these tools, connectivity, hardware, do you think that changed at all? Do you get any feeling like the students learned anything or got better at this in the process, or do you think they were fairly unaffected?
I think they just strengthened their skills they already had.
Mm.
So I think COVID for a lot of kids just kind of accelerated their ability to use their devices, whether it was an iPad or a Chromebook or their MacBook. And they got used to the process and workflow of digital work, digital videos, note taking, turning things in. And teachers did more of the screencasts and then sharing it with their students and then getting feedback loops. And so I think the students got more adept at it, but then some of them sort of felt like, well, what's the point of going to class?
Yeah.
So now that we have in-person class, it's sort of, no, you got to be here still. And then, some of the teachers do a great job of saying, okay, this is the type of activity that's really valuable because we're here in class.
Mm-hmm.
And this other stuff is more independent work. You can do that on your own or in the evening. And really, during the pandemic, they realized the benefit of being in person versus hybrid or asynchronous versus synchronous. And so,
yeah. Do you think that makes them better prepared? Listen, classwork was best. So, I mean, that there was some difficulty in the content, but I tend to see this experience for the students, while it struggled with the content, it almost mimics now what we're seeing in the enterprise, what we're seeing in the workforce, what we're doing in the workforce. And in some ways, and you can disagree with me or agree with me if you want, makes them, I think, a little more prepared to enter the workforce as far as the expectations of, hey, this is how I'm going to do my job. It's going to be for those that are going to be digital. Not everybody's going to do that, right? There's going to be some things, but I feel like it almost brought them closer to where the enterprise or where the workforce was today. I don't, any thoughts on that?
I don't see it in my team work. I mean, we're pretty, we all can do some things remotely, but we're a pretty in-person group. So my team needs to be in the buildings at your desk, working with each other, because things come up and we could do a lot remotely, but we do better together with my team. But I can see younger people looking for work in companies being much more remote friendly because of the flexibility. I like to sleep in. I like to take a run during the day. I want to be remote. I want to live here and work there. And so I have a nephew who's working for a company, and he lives in Michigan, and the company is, I don't know where. He's all remote, able to do everything he needs to contribute, connect, do all that from his house. And he's got his golden retriever by his side all day. So, and he's straight out of college, 2 years now. So I think that is more common depending on the type of work.
Yeah. My own experience is in doing both hybrid and remote sessions with people, or even all in person. We just don't struggle as much as we used to about thinking about making the connection. Like everybody just
doesn't
adapts.
seem foreign.
Yeah. Everybody just adapts. It's like, hey, we're going to do this thing, literally we'll be in a situation like we'll have a hybrid meeting set up where it's got a Zoom link associated with it.
Yeah.
And then 5 minutes before the meeting, somebody will go, hey, wait a minute. Everybody in the meeting is here
in the building.
Yeah. Let's quick get a room. And within 5 minutes, it's changed and everybody's quickly made their way in and they're in the room and we're meeting that way. Or the same thing may be true where they have a room scheduled, but they've got a bunch of remote people, and everybody will just go, well, let's just cancel the room, and it's a better experience for everyone if we're all remote than this, because hybrid meetings still struggle, or half the people are hybrid and half of them aren't, and there's people talking behind the scenes, and how do you figure all that stuff out? So a lot of times those switch pretty quick. They either go all remote or they go in person. I don't know. Any thoughts on that?
I guess that would be my preference too. Like either we're all together or we're all separate. Although the situation that works well for a hybrid is if you're doing interviews or you're bringing in a consultant where there's one remote person and everyone else is in a conference room kind of thing. But the mix of multiple remote and some in the room, that's hard.
Yeah.
It's hard to keep your attention focused. But we have seen a lot of the schools and principals doing more interviews on Zoom and remote. And so we've been helping them set up gear so that it's a good experience on both ends. And then I'll often do interviews and I'll do one remote, and I do my best to prepare the candidate. This is the tool I use. Please take the time to make sure you can get it working before the interview. And so if they're stumbling and not getting it to work, I'm like, well, you didn't do your job. Like, and in my department, you should be able to figure this out. I mean, that's pretty unusual, but I mean, our team, we would much rather pick up our laptops, walk down to a table together, put something on the screen, talk through it together, show each other what we're doing, than, stay in the same building and do remote.
Yeah. One of the things our tech teams did internally was, while everybody was gone, we replaced any projector with a giant TV.
Yeah.
Because they're cheap, right? I mean, they're cheaper and they've gotten very, very inexpensive. And then they changed the sound in there to get better, in a lot of cases, to try and get a better optimized, the sound improvements we made on conference equipment, I think, during the pandemic was pretty amazing. Of some of the new stuff that's coming out actually sounds pretty good. I was just in a meeting the other day where we had a room in Omaha and I had 4 in a room in DC and then 1 remote somewhere else. And typically that wouldn't have worked very well, but I think we've also learned to run meetings better hybrid. So by calling on people, like not just leaving it open, like, no, hey, Troy, I need you to go now. Let's do this, So the manager or whoever's running the meeting being very intentional about calling out people, joining the conversation. But that doesn't feel weird like it did 4 years ago or 5 years ago. That was just a very normal meeting for them. And it was very productive, even though it was hybrid, which worked out pretty well.
Yeah, I think we're all kind of learning those protocols, and you learn to pause because you're expecting someone else to respond instead of just motoring through. And when someone doesn't follow that, it's really jarring because you're like, you're not listening to the other participants. The cadence is off,
or watching for visual cues.
Yeah. The hand raise,
So
sometimes we'll have meetings with a vendor or someone and they'll ask, anybody have any more questions? Are we all good? And a lot of people just visually thumbs up, like raise their hand or do the emoji or something to be, indicating that they're part of it.
Yeah. The other funny thing about hand motions is when we end meetings now, everybody goes, bye.
Yeah.
You just see all these hands waving to each other, which is a very, nobody did that before. I mean, that was not a very common thing before. Certainly that came up. Producer Bob in the chat says no more 15 minutes to start meetings, which is probably true. Like, I mean, pre-pandemic, they would struggle sometimes to get folks connected and on right equipment, right place, doing the right thing. And I think now it's pretty fast. I went into a room today that had a Zoom shared console in there and a big screen, and it's got a little number. You can either use the number to connect to it or just a few buttons, and like my laptop recognized the room that I was in, and it just
weird.
It was literally one click share, and I was up on the screen with the Zoom, with my desktop, and because at first I'm like, oh, I'm gonna figure this out. I haven't been in this room before, and I pushed the button. It's the share button on the console, and then opened up Zoom and hit share on mine, and they just connected. And I was like, oh, well, that's easy,
That reminds me of the days where Cisco was trying to build the Unity conference rooms before the pandemic, and it was super expensive, high-end gear, complex. But the dream was you pick up a phone, you dial a number, and then the room just magically turns on and everybody's there. And we've kind of gotten there through a different route.
Yeah.
I just noticed the other day I opened Zoom and it's like ZOOOOOOOOM. They've added all these features to that. You got voice, texting, room conferences. I don't know what else they're offering, but they've expanded a bit.
Yeah. No, it worked out. I mean, from that standpoint, it worked out. I've been going in 3, 4, 5 days, sometimes a full 5 days a week. And I move around
Mhm.
quite a bit more than I used to, working in different locations and different things and just different specialties for what I need. So it's interesting. Did you, from a hardware perspective, have you guys changed anything district wise on the back end of this to adapt to it, or the students using different hardware? How'd that work out?
The student devices are staying put. We still have iPads for the younger kids and Chromebooks for the older kids across, the grades. And then at the high school, we still allow BYOD. So it's a hybrid of, if you want to check out a Chromebook, great. Take that, no cost. And then other students that prefer their own device in high school have that choice. I think to support all of it, we just have naturally grown our network, more network infrastructure, more bandwidth, better wireless. So I think we swapped out 600 access points over the 2 years, upgrading to 6 and 6E, and we're just always adding network capacity, and so that's sort of normal. And what we found is, like, especially during the hybrid days when we were kind of in the pandemic but kind of in person, when the teacher would run a Google Hangout or Meet in the classroom and every kid in the classroom is in that same meet, it's really hard on the access point because they're all unnecessarily in there because some kids are at home, or it was a sub, but the teacher's at home. I mean, those are the challenging situations where, like, you just can't, you just can't do that. Even one access point in the room, it didn't have the capacity for a simultaneous meet for
Yeah.
all 30
Yeah.
kids.
Well, access points that weren't powered very well. Like they
Yeah.
had cheap chips in them.
Yeah.
They weren't scaled out for the kind of connectivity.
Right.
They weren't scaled out for the video
Yep.
usage for sure.
So they could take a lot of clients, and we could take 200 clients on an access point, but not doing back and forth video.
Yeah. Yeah.
So 200 clients surfing the web, pulling down pages and email is very different from 200 trying to
Right.
stream a video up and down.
Right.
So the newer ones have that multi 4x4, like multi in, multi out. So they can take more individual streams back and forth, I think it's called. And I'm not sure if our access points are all 6 or 6E now, but we're definitely building capacity to be able to run a 2.5 gig copper 2 access points. So all of it's increasing. So we're doing a lot of bandwidth shaping, making sure no client is using too much bandwidth. Apple and Google servers, you just hammer us when there's updates released, whether it's for an iPad or a Chromebook, so we stage those out, and spread them out over a few weeks across clients. Windows isn't as bad because we control the Windows updates from an internal server. So that works well for us. But, the network is always in flux and replacing gear, trying to keep up with it. And then, okay, well, signal isn't as good in this room. So that's been a big part of the improvement, but the hardware, not so much.
6 came out, and then 6E. Bob asked, I was going to ask you this question too. Has 6E helped? It didn't seem like 6 was out very long, and then 6E came in kind of right behind it, and I think is a little more optimized for that. Have you seen a difference between those two? And if you're putting anything in today, do you just go right to 6E, do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think all our new stuff is going to be, and we're an all Cisco shop right now, so we use all their equipment, and we just put in, this is interesting, we noticed this, we just changed out the core switch for the entire district on Juneteenth, because it was a district holiday. So it's like the one day that there's not activities.
Yeah.
And we in our department were close to it. So we noticed a wired bandwidth, increase, because the switch capacity could handle so much more, whether it's wired or wireless bandwidth, to travel through it to get out to the internet and this and that. So it wasn't bad before, we would, but we noticed today or earlier this week, like, oh, this is better. Even though our clients are locked down to 200 megabits per second wired, we all like, okay, this is an improvement. So just even those hidden core switches that people don't see, those matter.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
A lot.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'm sure there's a lot of infrastructure this was a year as folks were coming back. For many, it was first full-time back, back in business. Everybody's kind of
Yep.
on site.
Yep.
And then you start looking at your hardware. You go, okay. And if we didn't, I mean, a lot of folks looked ahead and like, okay, this is going to be the future. We need to start replacing some of this stuff now while no one is here, type deal. Some folks not everybody, some folks got a chance to do that, or they're upgrading now, like you said, where they're like, oh, okay, we're going to need some more throughput on this thing just because. And we haven't really seen a big jump. I mean, as you talk about your hardware, I don't know if hardware's changed that much. Maybe you'd be better at speaking to this. It sounds like you're using the same hardware today that you were kind of using in 2019, at least from the way they were using it standpoint, or what you're using, right? So it's not like the hardware demand grew during that time. Is that a true statement or no?
I don't think the clients changed a whole lot. I mean, all our Windows laptops now support 6E, so they're more efficient. But it's all the edge switches and all the core that has to be upgraded to keep up with.
Oh, but the students' equipment didn't change, right? You're still using iPads, still laptops, still for the most part, that equipment is the same, right? We didn't see any big change in that, right?
No, we're still using the same. And one of the drawbacks of Chromebooks is their network chips have historically not been very strong. So you can be close to an access point and it shows you 2 out of 3 bars, but the other benefits kind of outweighed that. That's improving a lot. And so one thing we're looking at is we're pretty much Windows and Chromebooks at our district. And we're looking at the newer Chromebooks that are a little bit bigger, a little bit faster, a little more staff teacher friendly. Of what are some good models? How would that work for staff who've traditionally used a Windows laptop? And so we've been testing some various ones that are 14-inch screens, 8 to 16 gigs of RAM, and trying to see what's the comparison? Where do we find the value? What's the reliability? Because we think a lot of teachers that work in Google Chrome 99% of the time, and Google Workspace can use a Chromebook. So we've had some staff using them full time as their primary device, and pretty happy with it because the battery lasts all day. They can run what they need, and then wake up reboot time is much faster. Even with new Windows laptops, you reboot, you might, pour yourself a cup of coffee, come back, and after the updates apply, you get to log in. And then after you log in, you wait a couple minutes for all the extension and Teams and everything to load in the background. So we're kind of exploring that as what would staff devices on Chromebooks look like.
Yeah. I came out of the pandemic 100% browser enabled now. So I shouldn't say that. I have a Focusrite audio device in the studio where we podcast from, and that still requires a driver to be installed in Windows to work, which is just crazy. I was kind of like, seriously, are we to that point? And I have a Logitech camera that works better with the Logitech drivers, right? But for the most part, it's 100%. I got a new laptop. They opened it up. I was working in 15 minutes. Like, they opened it up, did a few things. Here you go. Where that used to be like an hour and a half, 2 hours to maybe deploy something. Like, hey, go to lunch. We'll have it ready for you when you get back, type deal. That's all super, super easy now. And I think our tech folks got better at that deployment because they had to do it remotely. Right? And now,
so you set up, OneDrive syncing, so your desktop and documents sync for you, or Google Drive syncing. And we're about 15 minutes. So we get a new staff member come down. Okay, here's your laptop. Let's log in. Let's set up MFA. We'll help you with this. Is this working? Make sure you got that. And so we feel 15 minutes is pretty good, but I can also give them a Chromebook and be done in 3 minutes. It's like, can you log in? Okay, see you later.
You're off to the races. Yeah.
But that's sort of true. Setting up the MFA with a new staff takes some time.
Sure.
Some of them get it right away, and some are like, I have to what? On my phone? Is that going to be private? So that we're still a lot of security challenges.
But do you think a lot of things have gone to FA? Do you think that's getting easier though with most people recognizing, oh yeah, I've got an app, or I know, like the Microsoft 2FA where it pops up on your phone, put this number in, 90, and then you're in. Do you feel like that's gotten easier?
I think so. I think most people know what it is. The hesitation is, why should I have to do it for work? Or why should I have to do it for this?
Right.
And so the most common response from teachers, which is, legit, is like, well, I don't have anything important, and
Yeah.
and I try to rephrase it of like, well, actually you do, because you have a lot of information about students. Depending on your role, you might have test score data that you have access to. You might have health data, special ed, IEP data. Like you may not feel like your emails are very private or confidential, but you have access to data that you don't want other people to have access to. And so then they're like, oh yeah, well, that makes sense. And we fear that someone is in your account acting as you, rather than someone's trying to get into your account to read your emails.
Right.
That's not what they want.
Right.
So it's a lot of education and a lot of like explaining it to some, we work off of least privilege access. There's a term for it, but give you as little access as you need, and then slowly open it up as, okay, you're the nurse, you're going to need more access, more data than the custodian or the first grade teacher.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's been years of work trying to say, instead of giving you rights to all the schools in the student information system, because it's just easier, we need to create groups for you that you get rights to just the students you need, or just the classes or grades you need. And so that takes more work on our part for sure.
Yeah.
But it's better in the long run.
Yeah. We have an email system that we implemented during the pandemic, and I need access to get into it to see what we're sending. This is all our automated stuff. What it's sending, are they opening it? Like, cause we get customers who are like, hey, I need
feedback,
you to resend that. Yeah. And like, well, actually we did send it to you. You haven't opened it yet. Check your spam type deal. They think that's kind of spooky. But when I first got access to the system, I could literally do nothing. I was like, guys, I need to be able to do.
Yeah.
They're like, okay, let's open up this and open up that. And then it was more like, okay, prove it to us that you need that access first, and then we'll give it to you. Like you said, as opposed to, hey, we're going to just give you access to everything, and we'll lock it down after you prove you can't handle it. So it's been a little bit, I've seen that. And that's a different way of looking at it. It's probably better. It keeps me out of trouble, right? From just going in and doing stuff. So,
well, it's definitely more work, it's a lot easier,
sure.
a lot easier to say, okay, you have admin access, do whatever. I trust you. Well, it's not a matter of trusting. It's a matter of preventing something bad happening unintentionally because they made a mistake or someone else did. So, they get it after you kind of give them some background and help explain it.
And we are the weakest link.
Right.
And so just the other day I was going through clearing some stuff out, and I had this moment of panic because I was like, I think I deleted something that I can't get back. And I think that's somebody else's thing. And for a moment I was like, oh, I shouldn't be trusted I should not be trusted to do any of this stuff. Right. Yeah. It's early in the morning, and don't be deleting files early in the morning. It was like,
or late at night.
Yeah. All right on.
Right. So tomorrow is no read only Friday. So in our department, we try not to do upgrades or major changes on a Friday, because if they go south, we're gonna have a bad weekend.
Good idea.
So read only Fridays. Yeah,
I like that.
No deleting, no major changes.
Yeah, don't do anything. Don't install stuff. Just don't. So do you try to hold things to like Tuesday through Thursday to kind of just middle of the week when you have everybody there, as opposed to?
It's a general suggestion, rule of thumb kind of thing. But we do very carefully look at, especially in the summer, because that's when we try to get a lot of this infrastructure stuff done. We look at all the calendars. We have a person that put together the summer programming spreadsheet, and it's this huge spreadsheet of programs across, and then the weeks and the columns, and then who's in what building. Is it mornings? Is it afternoons? Is it all days? What weeks? And so we look at that and try to find holes of times that we can do things. So like at a building, we'll go 7 to 8:30. We can, upgrade the core switch in that building. It'll take off the phones and wireless for an hour and a half, but the kids don't come till 9. So by 8:30, even with some leeway, we should be back in business. And so we have this very methodical calendar of upgrades that our network admin puts together, doing our best to hold harmless, because we have so much summer programming, more than we used to. I think a lot of the families said, you know, my kid's been at home for COVID. Let's put him in summer programming, keep it going.
Yeah.
And it's hard to do because we want to just be able to do stuff all day when we're awake. But it's worth it to try to keep things running and less disruptive when we can do it.
Yeah. Well, it's I may implement that for myself. Read only Fridays, and it's a good way to think about it. Like, yeah, don't do this going into the weekend. It's especially in the afternoon on a Friday afternoon. This tomorrow, so it's Thursday. Tomorrow, I've got a webcast to do in the morning. I have 2 meetings, and then we have a party for this summit that we just went through a couple weeks ago.
Mhm.
And that's it. Then I'm off for 10 days. And so so no Home Gadget Geeks. If you're a regular listener, no Home Gadget Geeks next week. After the last 4 years, like I've taken a few vacations, went out to Boston. I took one last year, but this, I finally feel like we're through all that stuff. We got through this year. It was a super busy year. It's like, yeah, I need some downtime. So I'm going to take some time offline, shut everything down. Don't answer. I've told my friends at work, like, seriously, don't email me. And I might even in my message, my out of office message, say, I'm treating this week like an email amnesty week. If you email me this week, I'm not going to read it. Like, you'll have to resend it on the 5th when I get back to work. Just because people, people just start loading that stuff in. And when I get back, I'll have 1,000 emails to reply to, and
Yeah.
so yeah, I've got that problem coming up. Well, I got vacation. I'm gonna hope that it's refreshing and get catch up on some sleep. So for sure.
Are you staycation or are you going somewhere?
Yeah, no, stay.
Oh,
Listen,
good.
vacation.
You got so many projects at home that you got to catch up on.
I know. And listen, a vacation, like going somewhere, is freaking work. Like,
yeah, you need a
come
break.
back, you're like, I needed a vacation from my vacation.
Yeah.
I don't want to say that. I want to be bored. Come July 5th, like, all right, I'm ready to go back. So
Yeah,
I'm hoping.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah. Hoping to get some real downtime, shut everything down. I've got some projects here and there to work on here at the house, but nothing I'm going to take seriously. And if I get it done, I get it done. If I don't, I'm not going to care. So
it's a great approach. I love home projects too when they're not crisis mode. Like, get that dryer fixed so we can do laundry. Kind of.
Exactly. I've got a fridge that's leaking that we've just turned the water off to, so it's not making ice or any of that kind of stuff. That's one of those kinds of things. As soon as you pull that thing out, you're like, okay, I got to get this fixed so I can push it back in so we can use it again.
Yep.
And well, you told me you got a speaker project. Are you installing some speakers in the garage? What are you working on?
Yeah, so I have a detached garage. It's a nice, large 2-car garage. And I had set it up years ago to have a projector and screen so we could watch movies in there with a stereo and 2 outdoor speakers above the screen, but they're in the garage. And I take them in the winter because I found that if I leave speakers in the garage all winter, they deteriorate super fast because of the cold, even though they're outdoor. So I take them in the winter. So this spring, I'm like, you know what? We just redid the patio out back, added a nice space to gather, have a campfire and stuff. So I put 2 more outdoor speakers under the eaves of the garage facing the patio, ran the wire back into the amp. And then I'm like, well, I want to be able to control the music from my phone remotely, but I don't want to use Bluetooth because if you walk away, it's choppy and then it's only your phone. So a good solution would be the Sonos amp, which is basically a receiver of your Sonos system that can output to the stereo, which can then use your speakers. But that was like $400. And I'm like, it's not that. I mean, I like my Sonos. I've got several around the house, but they're the small Sonos one. And the Beam is really good. I like that sound bar hooked up to my TV. But I found one on Amazon that's a Sonos knockoff, what I call it. And it was called Wim Pro. I'll see if I can find it, but it basically did the same thing, that it acted like a Sonos, but it advertises as if it was AirPlay receiver or Chromecast receiver. So on your network, it looks just like, I'll see if I can put it in the chat for you and you can share it. To your phone, it looks like an Apple TV or a Chromecast, but it also has an app of its own that can play music like the Sonos app. So when on my phone, I'm on Spotify, I just choose a destination and then Spotify sends it to this thing, which is connected to the receiver. And so it works great. And then it's also easy to share. So other people can use Spotify and join the listening party, I think they call it, or they can use YouTube Music and play it. But it's basically like a Sonos, but a lot cheaper. And so it has a digital audio out that connects to the receiver. And then this is an old Yamaha receiver. I have speakers 1 and 2. So I can say speaker set 1 is just inside, speaker set 2 is outside, or both. And so we had a grad party last weekend for the boys, and they had put together an 8-hour grad party playlist on Spotify. And we were able to just play it through this thing inside, outside the whole evening. And it was just great. So this was kind of a good find. Putting up the speakers was super easy. So I was kind of pleased with that project.
That's kind of cool. That's, the kids, I've had the kids over a lot over the last year. Like they just come over, seems like once a month, we can have the whole family over and we sit out on the deck. And for my birthday, one of the kids pulled out his Spotify, and they've shared all these they've made playlists for each other, and they've shared all these on Spotify, which I didn't realize how many they had as they were talking. They're like, oh yeah, no, I shared that with you, and okay, whatever. So they're doing this all without me, which is awesome. But one of the kids just took over we had one of those Bose Revolve 2 speakers.
Oh yeah.
Sits on the tabletop, perfect for that kind of situation. And you just hit the Bluetooth button, they take it over, and then we had one with the DJ. And at some point, if somebody else wanted to jump in, hit the Bluetooth button again, take it over. You can kind of do it that way too. I love this though, where you got permanent speakers, and in your case, you've got some multiple. I'm showing the back of this thing. Let me show this again. So I'm assuming it's got a couple different outs. These are RCA outs, right? That you can split them between 2 different locations.
Yep. So it can be wired. I don't have wired network in the garage, so it's just wireless. But then I use the SPDIF out, that digital optical out. But I could use line out. I could use coax out. I could even have something come into it and then go out to the receiver. I'm not really sure what I would plug into it. I don't remember, because I was only looking for, can it receive AirPlay? Can it receive Chromecast, Spotify Connect? Because those are the ways I wanted to play music.
Yeah. Alexa.
So
you could do the A-Lady. Sorry.
Yeah, you can do that. Yeah, it has Google and Amazon Voice Assistant. I don't go down that road, so I'm like, I can use my phone and touch the buttons, and I use it a lot. It's surprising. I'll go out and work on something in the garage or be watering plants or something, and I'll just put on music, and it's been really impressive. And the speakers I got them a few years ago on Woot, and because they were on a real clearance, and I thought, someday I'll put those up in the garage, and I didn't do it. And finally this spring I did it, and they sound really good. And they weren't really expensive, these Yamaha outdoor speakers. And I was like, I don't know if it's
still
just because I'm
still down every year.
Yeah, I'm going to take them in the winter. We get pretty cold up here too. 20 below is not good for your speakers and stuff.
It gets chilly here too. We don't everything we take out. The TV now, I have a stand out there, and I can literally just put the TV on this. I mean, snap it, because the TVs are so light, right? That connects to the Bose Revolve 2 if we want to do it that way. I did have, it was kind of fun this weekend to bring up Pandora on the TV through my account and play, and then you could see the album art as it was playing out through the Revolve, but the album art was on the TV and you could kind of see it that way. That was kind of a cool, and I moved the TV off the deck up above kind of the grill, and so it's kind of up above and away from everybody, and it was kind of cool to have that just up there, seeing the album art basically. I was hoping for some visualizations, maybe not
so much.
No, maybe not Pandora. But
go ahead.
We
brought out a TV too, and I hadn't done that before. we wanted to do a slideshow of the boys through the years kind of thing, in addition to the pictures that everyone puts at graduation. And so I got the same mount that I use inside. It's like a commercial electric brand or whatever at Home Depot, I think, but the same exact mount. So I just had 2 screws, took the TV off the mount in the bedroom. It's super light TCL, carried it, put it on there, 2 little screws, all wireless. And there's an app that you can play your Google Photos slideshow. So it was like 5 minutes and it was ready to go and playing the stuff out there. I was like, okay, that's pretty easy. I like that too.
It's pretty cool. I mean, the equipment is light, easy to move around.
Yeah.
I was just I follow Brad's Deals. It's one of those, you get an email and it's got all these different. It's got like clothing and outdoor furniture and technology gear and tools. Anyways, Brad's Deals. I'll throw a link to it in the show notes. But they were running a 4K 43-inch whatever amp at Amazon for $99. Like it's like, and, I bought this 32-inch. I think it's just 1080. I was like, it's outdoors. I don't need, and I think I paid $100 for that last spring, maybe this time last year for the deck. And you're thinking, and it got me thinking, I'm like, 43-inch 4K, I could just take the mount off the back, put the mount back on, it will sit up there, and then I was like, no, I don't need it. 32 is fine. I don't need a 43-inch TV out there.
So do you use that other TV inside also?
Yeah,
or is it just the outside?
It's on the treadmill. So
okay.
I put it on the treadmill. I bought same thing you did. I bought the same exact stand for the treadmill. So it just goes on. You just set it on there. I don't even use the screws. I just set it on. You just
hook it on and you're done.
Hook it on.
They are so light.
Yeah, it's not going to go anywhere, so I swap them in and out. And if I'd bought the 43, it could have been dedicated. And I was like, I don't, it's good. Like, I'm good. That's so hard to do, Nathaniel, when it's $100 for a 43-inch 4K.
Well, and you've made it so convenient because you have a power cord outside and a power cord inside. Yep. So all you got to do is move the TV and the remote and you're done because it's all wireless.
Yep.
There's, no cabling that you have to worry about.
Wires built in. So it's just a remote. There's not even a stick, not even a fire stick. It's just built in.
Yeah. That's my TCL's got the Roku in there and pretty happy with that.
Yeah, it's pretty good. So you said did you redo your patio? You put a fire pit in, or what'd you do out there?
So last summer, we had a retaining wall around the yard that was in front of the house, but there were no steps to get up. And you could big step up or you could jump up, but it was not real convenient for folks. They'd have to walk around a ways to go up or that. So we worked with a landscaper and they pulled that one out. It's much cheaper to destroy a retaining wall and haul it away and build a new one than to try to take it part way apart and rebuild it. So, and they put in a new retaining wall, basically in the same shape, but they added steps so that it's easy to get up and it's, nice. A little bit of a pedestal on each side. And then above that, instead of all grass, they put in some patio stones in a sort of a kidney bean shape around a tree because we didn't want to damage the tree too much. And so it's made that backyard so much more useful. So that was nice. Last summer. And then this summer we finished the landscaping and we rearranged the sprinklers because the old sprinklers were watering all grass. And so we had some come in and redo it so that the irrigation drips were just around the patio where we have plantings. And then the sprinklers are just on the grass. So we got that in. I put in an electrical outlet. We added some lights and landscaping and fixed it all up just in time for the grad party. And so It's been a lot of fun project. And now we're out there eating in the evening, having people over. We used to have a fire pit in the ground that was there before and was stones buried in the ground, but it was kind of back and it was a pain to clean out. So we didn't use it much, but we had that filled in. And now I use the Solo stove where we just bring it out, put it on the patio, left, right, center, wherever we want, run that for a while. In the morning, just take it back.
What'd you get? Which Solo stove do you have?
I have the Yukon now.
Oh, you got the big boy.
I had that bonfire for a while. And then a friend's like, I'll buy that from you. And I'm like, well, if you buy that from me, then I can upgrade to the Yukon, which can take the bigger chunks of wood.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it's funny because I was expecting it to be taller. It's the same height. It's just wider than the bonfire.
Right.
So I'm like, it's still good and it's still fun, but I was thinking for some reason it'd be taller, but it's just wider.
Does it throw off quite a bit of heat? I mean, is it one of those? I know they have that lid for it that kind of sits down and projects the heat out.
Yeah, I don't have the lid yet, but I'm thinking
Okay.
it would be good to get before winter because
Yeah.
it puts out a lot of heat. It just goes straight up.
Yeah.
So
Maybe extend the fire pit usage,
yeah.
through the have you looked into their mesas at all, the little tabletop ones to you can they use like literally like like twigs. You can put twigs in it and they show like making s'mores
Marshmallows.
around it and kind of stuff like that.
No.
Yeah, those have got Bob, I think it was Bob or somebody in Discord, in the Discord group, they were selling 3 of those for $150 at Costco.
Oh,
3 mesas, and
yeah.
the wood is literally, I mean, you can only get like a 3-inch piece of wood in there, but
How much heat can you get from
supposed
that?
to burn super hot. Well, I think the whole idea is ambiance. I don't think it's
Oh,
actually like meant for heat, you know. But I
Oh.
tell you what, Solo, man, those guys have been aggressive. Like they are
Oh, yeah, they got a
they
lot
are
of marketing.
creating all kinds of stuff, they
Oh,
got it going on. You
oh, they
see it?
have a Mesa XL. Just so you know,
Uh-huh.
they got it. That's that marketing, like we said. Like
Yeah.
you can't have one model. You got to have regular and large or
Yeah.
something. So people have the choice of like, well, this
Right.
one's bigger. I'm gonna get that.
Yeah, there's always those folks. John Biggs in chat says I actually had a part of my retaining wall taken apart and redone. Glad I didn't attempt to do that myself. Yeah, I almost did my fire pit with stone around the outside of it, but that is just so much work, and there's so much specialty work to that. Like that's one of those areas where knowing how to do it really pays off.
Yeah.
Otherwise,
Well,
you're
you watch
struggling.
the crew work, and you're like, okay, you guys, you definitely know what you're doing. Like the way they're careful with the leveling. The first course has to be perfect, and cutting the edges, and we got to get it to bend a certain way. It's nice
right
having
tools.
someone else really skilled to do that.
They have all the right tools.
Yep.
They've done it 1,000 times. That's one of those kinds of things. So after we got done doing our pit, and I just put loose stone 18 inches around the fire pit so that, for fire protection, and then wood chips around that. And when I got done, I was like, man, I'm glad I didn't do stone. I'd still be working on that thing. So it's worked out really well.
Well, and it kind of depends on how much a perfectionist you are.
True.
True. If you're good with wood chips and stone, like you have, and it looks good, then nobody's expecting it to look perfectly aligned and matching and everything. But if you're
don't need a stone fortress, need a stone fortress. But if like in this case, if you've got it going with stone and you got somebody doing it, it looks great. I mean, it'll last forever. And although I am seeing, some of this stone work we do now, that's all concrete blocks, right? They're not actual stone, they're concrete blocks. And the salt that we use up here, if you're out there salting your walks, they'll start chipping off. It'll start coming off, and then you got to replace that too. So
I see that.
Yeah. Well, it sounds cool, and it is kind of nice, right? When you get the outside done. We had Jay Franzi on a couple months ago, maybe 2 months ago, he was talking about putting a fire pit in his backyard. Isn't it nice when you get all that stuff kind of set up and it's comfortable and you don't have to think about it anymore, and you just go out and do, right? We go out, flip on the switch. We have fans, we set up a breeze machine.
Oh, that's right.
Flip on the switch, you set the fans the way you want them, blows a nice breeze across the deck, bring the TV out, or just bring the speaker out, set it down. Somebody's going to control the playlist, and just enjoy time together rather than thinking about all that stuff. It's kind of nice, isn't it?
Yeah, no, we've definitely gone out there just to be out there, and inside we've got the kitchen tables covered with stuff. Let's just take dinner outside and eat out there. And we got some new chairs that have some cushions in it, so that we are comfortable. And we had, for the party, we had 2 6-foot tables up there, and then high tops and then chairs everywhere. And then on the lawn, and we had, it was just a great gathering place, and having people get together and have a chance to talk and share. We had a lineup of 10 or 11 coolers all along the garage with different varieties of drinks. Because in my head, when we were planning this out, I thought, I'd rather have more coolers with less mixing. Yeah. So this is the cooler that has these 1 or 2 flavors of soda, and this is the cooler that just has water. And so there was less digging through trying to find what you want. And so you can tell when you do that and they're all in the sun all day, the next day or two, you can tell which coolers actually keep things cold and which ones just melt right away. So,
yeah. The Yetis, they keep them cold. Everything else, not so much. Yeah. No, that's
well,
cool.
These Colemans did pretty well. Those were the winners in this race, but
nice.
You can tell.
Yeah. We leave, when the kids are over, we don't do any coolers out. It's just like get your drink,
bring it
out on the deck. Yep. But there's, there can be 9 of us at a time doing this kind of thing. So it gets pretty busy when we do it. As you're thinking ahead, as we think about tech gadgets ahead, anything you're keeping an eye on that you haven't pulled the trigger on yet, that you're kind of like, boy, this thing's coming out, I'd sure like to have it when it does. Any thoughts on that?
Well, not for me with 2 boys going off to college. I'm thinking about them. But one thing I've been thinking about is upgrading one of my wireless access points to be 6 or 6E or long range. I can get a good signal in the garage, but it's not as good from inside, and it's not that far. But so I've been looking at some of the Ubiquity access points that are now 6 or 6E and seeing like maybe I should get one of those and I can just swap it out. It's already PoE, it's already ready to go, because I have a couple of the older generation, like probably Wi-Fi 4 or 5 lights, which are working fine. And so then I'm thinking, well, if I get a stronger signal outside, that might be more useful. Mm-hmm. So
yeah. No, I put an extender in the kitchen to reach the deck, and that's so I can't get to the shed, which probably 6E would get to the shed just fine. So I just been waiting for my current infrastructure to go out, so to speak.
Yeah.
Because it kind of works. You hate replacing that stuff while it's still
right. I mean, it's working just fine in the house, so it's not like something's broken. So I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah. Well, it is one of those things. You take on these projects. I've got this shed out in the back corner. We cut some trees down because they were super messy. They were mulberry trees, and they would just drop purple.
Oh yeah, they're messy.
So I had those cut down. Well, what that changed, and I go out there on the weekends and maybe enjoy a cigar or 2 out there in that shed. Well, what it changed is it's not shaded anymore, right? And so it's getting like 100, 102 in there, right? So I installed some fans. Well, come to find out, when it's that hot, fans don't really cool anything down enough, right? So you can get it down to maybe 96, 97, right? Type thing. So I thought, well, I'll just get a simple air conditioner and install it. I'll get a window air conditioner and install it in. I'll get one that's overrated for that space because it's not the most insulated. No, the radiant heat coming in on the roof is so much that air conditioner just can't keep up. So then you're like, So then I'm like, maybe I need to put insulation in the, because it's not insulated at all. So you're like, well, maybe I should put some insulation in the ceiling to kind of block that radiant heat, So I've got 3 bats of insulation sitting right in front of the shed, ready to go in on Monday. On my, this is going to be one of my projects that I work on when I'm on vacation. So then you're like, well, you can't, like, it's the middle of the summer, so you can't go out there all. So I bought one of those breathable, those white murder suits, that
white Tyvek,
when they're murdering people. Yeah. So I've got one of those. So I'm gonna go out like at 5 a.m, when it's cool or coolish, and start putting this. And then even then, I may insulate this thing, and it may not still do enough. I'm like, okay, when is enough? And Ed, who I call on Sundays from the shed out there, he eventually, when's enough is going to be enough on this thing? When am I going to stop trying to make improvements to an outdoor shed, because pretty soon it's going to be a garage.
Yeah.
Bunkhouse.
Yeah. Well, maybe
no
what
stuff.
you should do instead is
Yes.
build a platform above the shed that can block the sun.
I thought about that.
Or a tent, or one of those tarps, that they use at patios, or a pergola.
Over the top, and then maybe I could grow some, some plant, some vines that then shade out the sun from there. It only take 3 years for them to get mature enough. Do you see the madness?
Well, it's that sort of never-ending project that you just turn into some huge complicated thing.
Yeah. Well, and Sarah didn't help. I was talking about this, hoping she'd say, yeah, don't spend any money on that. She's like, yeah, that sounds like a great idea. She's like, because I'd even put some shiplap or some tongue and groove boarding in there, to kind of cover the insulation as I was going to put it in. So I put a few boards in. It does look pretty nice, and she's like, yeah, that looks good. You got to do the rest of it. And that's probably $800 in wood to just, tongue and groove that thing. And it's like, okay, it's a shed. Like,
did you try?
I'm taking advice, so keep going.
Did you try a vent fan that can run and pull the hot air out?
No, I haven't done a roof vent, but I do have
or the side gables.
Yeah, I have side fans that are pulling air. Now, those fans aren't very powerful, but I just don't know if it'd make that much of a difference. When you touch the ceiling, it's hot. Yeah. Like it's only USB or OSB that is. Yeah. It's probably 3/4 inch OSB.
Yeah.
That's not, and it's got asphalt shingles. So like,
do you have any vents in that roof? Probably not, because it's small.
No. Yeah. No. And I should probably cut one in on this.
Yeah.
But I do have gable vents, and so that helps get some of that hot air trapped in top. But it's not that much of a difference heat wise. I mean, the whole thing is 105 degrees.
Yeah.
when you're in there. I just didn't quite understand all of the consequences of cutting those trees down. I mean, I cut them down, cut them up, stacked the wood, and we've been burning the wood this summer, which has been great. But I didn't realize it was going to cost me, $300 air conditioner, $100 in insulation,
$800
in wood.
Yeah,
because wood's not cheap. If I decide to do that.
Well,
Nathaniel,
how much would it cost to put a somewhat mature tree back in that place and have it grow a few years?
Again, 3 years from now, it doesn't help next Sunday, right?
No,
doesn't help me out next Sunday. What I may do is put the insulation in and then get those rolls of reflective. They have that reflective fabric that you would just then staple onto the joists. So it'll cover it's cheaper than wood. It'll cover the insulation, so it's not like you're just seeing that insulation all the time, and it will send the heat, the radiating heat. It'll send it back. So if it comes in, it'll go back out the other direction. So it's a barrier from that, because that's really the problem. The whole roof's 150 degrees.
Yeah,
and it's just radiating down on you.
I think putting in a roof vent might be a good idea.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, if I do that, then I'll definitely need a roof vent in there for sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
John Big says, plant the tree. I don't want to hear you on Home Gadget Geeks 3 years from now saying, man, I really should have just planted that tree back in 2022. The problem is it's in my neighbor's yard. So, and I can't listen. His partner was not happy at me for cutting down these trees. So I can't go back and say, hey, I really can't. I can't go back and say, hey, can we put those trees? They do have some what I call fence weeds here in Nebraska. They're just stuff that grow along fence lines, whatever. They got some of those growing. So I am kind of hoping maybe they'll get tall enough to maybe block out some of the radiation, coming in. But yeah. Bob wants to know how soon before the shed has a TV, a humidor, and a fridge. Well, Bob, if I'm putting insulation in the ceilings and on the walls, I did the doors last year. The doors are fully insulated in there now too. So,
well, I think you might find it makes a difference because we, with this garage we have early on when we moved in, I insulated all the walls and the ceiling, and then put OSB on top. Partly because then it's really easy to screw in something on the wall wherever I want. I don't have to look for a stud. I just put it wherever. But it's made a difference, especially in the winter. We'll be 20 degrees or more warmer in the garage than it is outside just by putting the insulation in the walls and in the roof line. And so I use that insulation that has the paper backing, and it fits in the studs and just staple it on. And I've been pretty pleased with that and not had to put a heater in. Obviously, a heater would help. It would keep it, closer to 30, 40 degrees instead of 20. But even when it's real cold out, it'll be 20 degrees in the garage. So,
well, I bought one of those big buddy, Mr. Heat, big buddies. And that'll keep on even as below 0 day, I can get it to about 60 in there.
Yeah.
If I've
got with your insulation, you just have to use it less.
Yes.
You fire it up for 10 minutes and then let it sit.
And you gave me an idea. Maybe I should cover that insulation with OSB. I was thinking it would be nice to have these.
Oh, they would look way better.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. I wasn't concerned about look. I was like doing what's cheap.
4 times the cost. Although, I don't know. I'll have to look because,
But I have a TV in my garage now. I should take it back inside, but in the fridge and the music and it doesn't rain in there, so it's easy to just hang out there. And
well, if I can get it, it is nice to go out there and have cover. I mean, I could do the call from the deck, but it is nice sometimes. There's no bugs. You're under cover. If I can get the air conditioning working, then it would be a really nice place to be. And then I'll buy another shed for all my tools and equipment.
Now that your shed has been taken over by people, you gotta have somewhere
now
to
that it's a
store all
living
your
space
stuff.
and a futon and a place to a TV, something to watch, something to go out to, but it's ridiculous.
Well, if all your kids and family are home, they can be in the house and you can be out in the shed and peace and quiet.
Yeah. Well, we used it. We did when the kids came over. It was April. It was still, we got a little snow this day. It was one of these really kind of cold April days, but we wanted to be together and we were smoking cigars. So we weren't going to do it in the house. So we went out to the shed and there was 6 of us in there. It was big enough for 6 of us to be standing in there. And it was nice. I had the heater on and to be together out there during that time was kind of nice. So you can kind of use it. It's not giant, but it's big enough to comfortably fit 4.
Well, and it provides that space for gathering.
Right.
It's kind of like when you have a party and everybody ends up in the kitchen. Then you have all this other space where people could sit, but they're in the kitchen chatting and close to the food or whatever.
No, it makes a place to gather. So I got a little work today. The Wi-Fi doesn't reach it. That was another thing that I almost upgraded my kitchen Wi-Fi so it reached the shed. And then I'm like, you know what? I've got this phone that's got a hotspot. I could just use the hotspot on my phone for the 4 times a month.
That's true. But you couldn't use your Sonos speakers that way.
No.
So you got to stick to the Bluetooth.
Yeah. Well, the things we do, Nathaniel. Well, hey, thanks for coming out and responding back. Good to catch up with you, and always great to see you. And good luck as you send the kids off here in the fall. You got a couple although this gets coming fast. Probably early August, right? So
So my wife left tonight. She and high school graduate went up to Duluth they have a day of orientation tomorrow. And then the oldest, who just graduated from technical school, is going to go to Mankato State in the fall. So I'll have 2 in the university system in the fall. So it'll be good. We're excited for both of them. I think they're both ready for it and excited for the change and the challenge. And we're real pleased.
Yeah, that was exciting times. We're in that phase. My 2 youngest are both finding their career jobs or whatever, right? Mm-hmm. And so my youngest boy is interviewing this week. He's got a couple interviews on some higher end mechanic jobs, doing aircraft mechanic stuff. And Sammy just got this job. We heard from her a couple weeks ago, but at this job at the library. But she's kind of thinking okay, how do I turn this into a full-time role? And how do I get she's going to need benefits here in the next
Yeah.
18 months, right?
Yeah.
How do I turn that into that? And so it's just fun to see them at this part. My oldest three have all done that, and now to
Yep.
see these last two go through that phase is pretty cool. So I enjoyed the phase you're in though a lot when the kids were in college. That was fun.
Yeah.
I didn't enjoy paying for it, but I enjoyed.
Yeah, that's going to be interesting. But
yeah.
So I learned a trick. One of my nephews works in financial aid down at ASU in Arizona, and he said, try calling a week and a half to 2 weeks after classes start and see if there's unclaimed scholarships.
Oh,
and I'm like, oh, I never heard of that before. I said, sometimes people don't claim them or take them, and we have, extra pools of money that need to be distributed. And I'm like, I'm going to do that.
The school wants it. They want to give it to somebody so they can use it. Yeah.
So
let's
see if that works. Yeah.
Yeah. Let me know how that goes. I mean, I don't have kids that are eligible anymore, but let me know how that goes.
Yeah.
It'll be good. Be fun to. Well, can you hang tight for 1 second while I close this up? A couple reminders on the way out. If you want to join us in the Discord group, head over to theaverageguy.tv/Discord. And that's actually conversation, really light conversations, super fun. So if you're not looking for something you got to check all the time, but something where you can have some conversations, join us in the Discord group, theaverageguy.tv/Discord. If you want to leave a message for the show, send us. You can do that at homegadgetgeeks.com. There's a little bit of there's a button over there that's got a recording thing. You can just leave me a 30-second message and we'll play that right here on the show. Don't forget the AverageGuy.tv platform, both web and media hosting, powered by Maple Grove Partners. Get secure, reliable, high-speed hosting from people that you know and you trust. I think Christian's going to come on here in a couple weeks. He still has plans for $10, so no inflation on those plans and inflation free. If you need some hosting, he's pretty great at it. Get it done. MapleGrovePartners.com. I haven't mentioned in a while, but HelloFresh has really upped the game on this, and we're giving away some like $110 worth of free stuff from them. Check it out, theaverageguy.tv/HelloFresh. I still am killing those meals. They're super awesome. You can send me an email, jim@theaverageguy.tv. I think that's it. We are live every Thursday, 8 p.m. Central, 9 Eastern, here at theaverageguy.tv live. I would tell you what's coming up. Well, next week I'm off again because I'm on vacation. But the week after that, I don't have anybody scheduled. I started working on that tonight. So we'll get some folks lined up. I mentioned Christian will probably be back. I asked Aaron to come back. We'll get some other folks as well. And we'll keep going. Like Nathaniel asked, we will keep going on this thing just as long as you keep listening. We do 400 or 500 listens a week. That's enough. It's good enough for me. You guys are pretty awesome. Join us not next week, but the week after, 8 p.m. Central, 9 Eastern, out here at theaverageguy.tv live. For those listening tonight, John, Bob, let's see, who else did I see? I saw Joe out there a little bit earlier. Thanks for you guys coming out. We'll be back in 2 weeks. With that, we'll say goodbye, everybody. Thanks, friends. Nathaniel, thanks for doing this tonight, man. I appreciate it. It's good to catch up with you.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. It's fun to kind of recap. I haven't had the same amount of projects and tinkering that I did before.
You're launching kids. And
things are stable. And a lot of people are talking about, like, I used to be building my own computers and tinkering. And then you get to this phase where you're like, I just want stuff to work.
Yeah.
I'm not going to change anything. And so I think I'm in that sort of plateau, a valley of stuff. I'm curious to see how this passkeys all works out. That has potential, but I'm skeptical.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I haven't wanted to tinker as much either, although I just bought this Ugreen solar thing, and it's had a few not working so well type things. And I called them this week and they were like, oh, well, send us a video of what's going on and we'll take a look at it. So I did. I still haven't heard from them. I sent that on Tuesday and I haven't heard from their support, and I was like, oh, well, I hope I didn't they've been really aggressive. I know they've sold a jillion of those things. And so I'm wondering if they're a little overwhelmed, but you get in that moment, you're like, why did I do this? I should have went with Blue Eddy, because they immediately after I bought this one, they came out with their own version. Of course, they're a little more established, been doing this a little bit longer. And I almost bought two. Like, I want this thing to work. Like, I want it to back up my stuff,
So in your head, what you want something to do. It's just finding the right formula.
Getting it working right. Yeah. And in this case, so I simulate a power outage. and it starts, 99, goes to 100, 99, 98, and it tells me like you got an hour and 30 minutes, and it's all true, right? All that stuff is true. And so it's literally running everything, which is super cool to see. I don't have any power going to any of my computers, and this battery is running 6 computers, all the monitors, and it would run it for an hour. Like
Wow.
no UPS does that, right? You get like 7
Yeah.
minutes, right,
Yeah.
on a UPS. So it's super cool, but at some point between 80 and 20, it just decides it's out of juice, and it goes from like, in the case that I videoed, it got all the way to 20%, and then just reset. And when I plugged it back in, it started from 0. And I thought, oh, okay, the controller has some issues here. Like, this is
Yes.
not.
It's not reading its own level
Yeah,
accurately.
yeah. And I saw some issues once they start responding to me. I saw some issues. I have a Belkin voltmeter
Yep.
thing, you plug in between, and it's like 100 watts difference in between what it's reading and what the Belkin is reading for. And I was like, oh, that can't be good. So I'm just kind of wondering if it's got either a bad controller, or if they went, maybe it's like a firmware issue on the controller they have. I don't, this is their first
Version.
attempt, into this big. I mean, they make a lot. Ugreen makes a lot of those little phone adapters, chargers, batteries. Like, it's not like they came out of nowhere, but this is their first really big device for this.
This is different.
Yeah. It's got a little bit different hardware.
Well, it'll be good to hear about that in a couple of weeks. You can recap
Yeah.
the saga of like, here's the goal, is what I was trying to do. Here's what I thought would work. This is what I learned. And
well, I don't want to throw them under the bus, and I definitely want to work. I mean, I've
Yeah.
been trying to work with their support and get some stuff. I don't want to be one of those guys who are like, comes out screaming on YouTube,
no,
you're the worst ever, or whatever. They've been very aggressive in their marketing, and so I know they're trying to do some things. I just hope they have enough support people,
yeah,
to be able to do it. So I've been talking about it in the post show every week, just kind of for folks that stay alive, because they know the saga show. But maybe I'll do a show once I get it all worked out. I'll do a show where I kind of walk through all, because it's super cool. Like I said, to be able to, we had a power outage, to an actual power outage, to be able to take that thing, one plug out of the wall, plug it into the generator, and it just works. Like, nothing goes down, everything stays on. That's pretty great.
And you're not using gas.
Well, I mean,
it doesn't have gas, right?
No. That doesn't. When the power goes down, if it was going to be a long-term power outage, I would plug it into my gas generator.
Oh, okay.
Right?
This is just a
this
solar
would give me
UPS.
Yeah,
Bridge.
It would give me an hour. It would give me an hour and some change to cut that thing over, right? As opposed to a UPS that all the UPSs I've ever had, the lights go out and they start beeping, and then 7 minutes later, they're
well, and that's how we use UPSs at work. The home, the only purpose of the UPS is in the closet is to bridge between main and generator power.
Yeah.
And it could be 1 second, it could be 10 seconds, it could be, but we just use them long enough that the switches stay stable until the generator kicks in.
Yep. Yeah. And it takes me, I don't have a home. I didn't want to put a big home switch or mess with the electrical here. So I put something that brings it into the house, and I can just plug it into that. So 240 on the outside of the house, it splits it to two 120, 30 amp circuits coming in. And then I can just I have a cable. I just run over here and plug it in. Works great. That part works great, and tested works really well. But it gives me like an hour and some change to do that. If I was sitting down here, nothing would go down and it would stay up. And do I need that? No, but it's super cool.
Well, I think it's as we depend more on electricity and less, places that have natural gas or things. Kind of, this is a good time to be experimenting with those solutions.
Yeah. No, for sure. Hey, if you guys are listening live, we're going to let you go. Thanks for coming out again. And Bob, thanks for that. Jay, thanks for letting us know. Appreciate you guys. Bob, don't get me wrong. I've thought about a bigger shed for the tools, and then or just a new shed that I finish. But then you get it's I shouldn't do it. Stop. Don't tell me to do that. We'll see you guys in 2 weeks. Take care, everybody.